and pain. Some of those people do it as a part of their martial arts practice. On the other hand, there are many people with diseases such as cancer that seem to transcend pain simply out of the strength of their own character. And from them, we could learn too, potentially, what they thought, what they felt, how they relate to the pain that they have, and what meaning they make of it. Then we would have a chance, I think, of developing procedures that would help us to teach people how to prevent excruciating, debilitating pain. Or should they experience it, how to minimize it and put it in the background of their lives rather than to have it in the foreground so that it obliterates everything else, which is what pain so often does.
Though most of us don't have the time or the inclination to dedicate ourselves to Shi Yan Ming's style of training, we can benefit from the principle of mind and body discipline. Even the simplest forms of self-control might help. We can use relaxation, exercise, and meditation to help in our own pain control. It's Good Friday in the Philippines. Today, Ruben Anahe will offer himself up for ritual crucifixion. The men who do this are known locally as Christos. Ruben has been through it 15 times, but this year is the first time he has been chosen to play the role of Jesus in the Passion Play. His principal motivation for going through with it? To thank God for what he perceives as a miraculous event.
Nakakit naman ako kaso nung lumalakad na ako doon sa itaas, bigla ako nahulog. Wala sa ikatlong palapag, papaba. Nung himala ko noon, wala man lang ni galos o pila yan nakuha sa akin. Hinihingi ko pa yung mga iba, yung ganong pamilya ko na sa kalusugan na.
In the Philippines, pain is still seen as potentially useful or transformative. And in a religious context, it can be inflicted on the body for a specific purpose. And that purpose can lead to positive advantages for you or your family in your relationship with God. I am offering my body as a sacrifice. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm asking God for something. This is an act of supplication or thanksgiving.
Just as Ruben believes that his act will benefit those around him, in a remarkable equation, those around him can actually help his pain. The support and respect of his family and community are crucial.
There's interesting social psychological work in the laboratory showing that the reference group you have around you, who you feel solidarity with, can really influence your ability to tolerate pain. So if you're having a pain and you're thinking, this brings me closer to God, or this will help my family. I'm doing something now that will really bring benefit to my family. Then clearly it's going to be something that you can endure much more, which doesn't mean that you're not having the pain. It may be that the pain is quite terrible, but the meaning of it is positive in a way that it's worth the investment. It's worth the suffering through it in some way.
The meaning we attach to pain affects how we experience it. When we hurt, we extrapolate from the pain. We worry about the consequences. We get upset and uptight and depressed. For Ruben, there are no such catastrophic thoughts, as he sees the pain as a positive, a way in which he can get closer to God. Despite this undoubted commitment, the Catholic Church does not sanction these acts. Word has spread about the crucifixions. They've become a magnet for global media and travelers. The village of San Pedro takes on an almost carnival-like atmosphere. Flagellants score their backs with lashes and mingle with the hordes and the hawkers. But despite this commercialism and the opposition of the church, the villagers continue to play out a powerful ritual here.
Most people see these rituals as examples of Catholicism taken to an extreme. These are extreme events. There is another way of looking at it. There is a deep tradition which surfaces throughout the rituals, particularly the crucifixion ritual, where people are trying to access sacred power. One man is chosen to play the role of Jesus Christ, and that is a significant role because they have to carry a cross 2 kilometers. They have to carry the cross down to the Calvary site and perform during the Passion Play, which has a script, it has costumes. So this is a theatrical performance and a ritual nailing to the cross. They don't want exhibitionists to take part. They want people who have sacred vows. They want their motive to be pure and sincere. It's very painful at the beginning, usually, and this is significant. There is no attempt by the Christos to enter trance prior to ritual performance, prior to the nailing itself, the climax of the ritual. They deliberately do not want to be in an altered state of consciousness at this moment. They want the body to be human, to be vulnerable, to be weak, and to feel the pain at that moment. And that is because they want to feel and share the suffering of Jesus Christ at that moment. The Filipino expression is damai. It means to share suffering, in this case the suffering of Jesus Christ. And then gradually, progressively, they want to lose the feeling of pain until they achieve analgesia, the absence of pain. And this is a significant moment, because if you achieve analgesia, that is evidence, it's direct proof that you're being blessed by the divine and you're being protected. And an audience is necessary for that, to bear witness to that moment, to bear witness to the absence of pain when pain should be present.
The wider implication here could be that for those with faith, presenting pain to a higher power in the company of a supportive community could help relieve that pain. We in the West may consider the Christos act as extreme, find the pain they bear as unimaginable. But here in San Pedro, this act of sacrifice is upheld and revered. So accordingly, their experience is a positive one.
That is an extremely empowering experience. It can be physiologically empowering through the release of endorphins. It can be psychologically empowering, and it can be culturally empowering in the local community.
This Filipino experience is just one illustration of how cultural context plays a huge role in pain perception. Pain is an experience that encompasses who we are and in what circumstance we feel it.
When we look cross-culturally, if we look at any ritual setting, what's most dramatically obvious to us usually is that these are public events, that many people are involved, that there's a very strong sense of the solidarity between people, of the investment that others have in the person who may be enduring some painful experience.
By studying the testimony of people who subject themselves to such extreme acts, we can learn more about the factors that make up the pain experience.
Describe mo yung sakit na mararamdaman mo. Bibili ka ng bagong blade. Bagong blade, ha? Subukan mong hiwain yung kamay mo. Kung gaano kahapdi yun, lagyan mo pa ng alcohol, yun ang mararamdaman mo. Yung iisipin ko na nasa tabi ko lang ang Diyos. Gabayan niya ako. Para hindi ko madama yung sakit na yun.
Now, theologians and scientists are starting to work together to explore the basis for the widespread belief that faith and prayer can actually modify pain in the wider community.
The obvious way to go here is to see whether we can set up experiments in which religious practices of prayer and meditation, may be able to be seen neurophysiologically to be affecting the very experience of pain.
The study will rely on brain mapping machines that record reaction to pain. The experiment will take a group of people who have considerable commitment to prayer and record their response to a pain stimulus while praying and then while they are not in prayer.
What we hope and expect to see is that there will be distinct modifications of the affective response to the pain as a result of such practice. And what this means is that the theologian who argues that pain is capable of religious transformation will now be proved correct at this micro-scientific level, which I think is a fascinating breakthrough, not only for theologians, but probably even more significantly for medical pain investigators.
At the cutting edge, religion and science, philosophy and biology are collaborating in their efforts to understand the complexities of pain.
Over the 20th century, we progressed from a very simple idea of pain as a message that begins out in the periphery, in the hands or the feet or wherever the hurt is, makes its way up to a certain part of the brain where it rings a pain bell and says, aha, there's an injury. We know now that that's too simple.
Now the understanding is more advanced. Once the brain has received the pain message, it interprets and evaluates it, reacts to it, even worries about it. This depends on who we are and what our situation is. Basically, it means that each person's pain experience is unique. You could say the brain is a site where culture and biology interact.
So whenever we hurt, we're trying to attribute some reason or purpose to the pain. There's not just a sensation, there's also this emotion, which is uncomfortable and unnerving, and at the same time there's this search for what does this mean, what can I do about it, how can I cope with it.
These Christos are raised on the cross alone, but know that they are not suffering alone. Pain for the Christos is not a lonely experience, which helps them. And that has relevance to pain sufferers everywhere.
Well, one thing we learn is that it's not just medicine that should be involved in the management of pain. That obviously the pain sufferers are important, people experiencing pain, of the person. I think the family plays an enormous role in pain management, and educating the family and having the family be able to use its indigenous resources, relationships, meanings, love. I think all that is crucial.
Ano po pakiramdam mo ngayon na tapos na?
Pakiramdam ko talagang maganda yung pakiramdam ko. Maganap na naman yung isang panata sa akin.
Another year's devotion completed. Reuben will repeat his vow next year. Next, we travel to India to examine the use of meditation and trance to control pain. 80% of India's population is Hindu. A small proportion of them are sadus, holy men. This holy man is preparing a circle of fire. He'll sit in the center of the flames, enduring intense heat for hours at a time. Only a devoted few take on these extreme acts in the name of their faith. This sadhu has vowed to remain standing for 12 years. He's got 8 more to go. After years of practice, these ascetics are able to block out the sensation of pain as they perform amazing feats of endurance. Austerities laid out for them in their scriptures.
When you see a sadhu doing some kind of austerity, like, for example, heat, what they will do is sit in the middle of this ring of fire. What he's actually doing there is avoiding the creation of karma and burning up his old karma. And it really has nothing to do with sin. There's no sin per se in Hinduism. What they're trying to do there is escape from this reality. And the reason for that is because they believe that this reality that we experience with these trees and buildings and people and so on is ultimately unreal. It's an illusion. So the goal is to get out of the illusion. So it's not like enlightenment per se, it's escape from this reality. That's what they're trying to accomplish.
On their particular religious path, the sadhus take on rituals that involve pain. Then they put this pain to use, focusing in on it to try to rise above it. It's this ability to block out the pain that has interest for us in the West, as we attempt to understand their capacity to control their experience of pain. Mangal Nath is from the Nath sect and has been practicing this fire austerity for almost 10 years.
The temperature in the shade is about 40 degrees centigrade. In there, it will be at least 10 degrees higher, so it will be 50 degrees centigrade. And he can sit it out for an hour or so. One of the things this particular sect of sadhus do is practice hatha yoga, and breathing is one of the essential exercises. So it's really breathing techniques to be able to deal with extreme heat or extreme cold in that matter.
As he meditates, Mangalnath uses breathing techniques taught to him by his guru, his spiritual teacher. He practices the technique every day, and it's this ability to focus his attention so intensely that's a key factor in avoiding pain. He blocks out the heat of the fire once he reaches his state of trance.
Sadhus do austerities that for ordinary people would be extremely painful. And in a normal state of consciousness, you really couldn't do it. But you see, they're doing it in a state of trance. It's a meditation that they're doing, which then allows them to not experience the pain, to dissociate the pain. That means that in the brain, neural messages transmitting pain do not get processed. So in psychiatric terms, this is dissociation.
The holy men of India are actually avoiding pain. Their brains are simply not receiving the pain or heat message. The entire nervous system is intact and operating normally. The pain stimulus is received at the periphery of the body and travels toward the brain. However, these sadhus are able to interrupt the pain message at the final stage of its journey before it gets processed by the brain and registers pain and discomfort in the body.
Dissociation, for us in the West, it's seen as a mental illness, so it's seen as a very undesirable state. It's not something that you would want to do. But that's what they desire to do, and that is in fact their practice, and they want to be experts at it.
इतने मन इधर उधर भागे नहीं, भ्रमण नहीं करे, ये क्रिया होगी साधु की। जो है किसी के अंदर मन इधर उधर ललचावे नहीं, जाए नहीं, भागे नहीं, इसलिए अपनी साधु की।
Karanut is 26 years old. For the last 4 years, he has not sat down once, not to eat or to sleep. This practice is remarkably painful. His feet swell and his back goes into spasm from the constant strain. But he will continue on this spiritual path for another 8 years, a duration determined by his guru. For this sadhu, undertaking an act of such extreme endurance is essential if he is to succeed in his spiritual quest.
ये तपस्या किसके लिए है?
बताइए अपनी मुक्ति के लिए क्या करना?
झूला से क्या करते हैं? झूला क्यों है?
यही तो आराम करने के लिए, इसी पे आराम करना पड़ता है। 2 घंटे नींद आती हो, इसी पे आती है, या कोई ड्राम हो उसके ऊपर आ जाता है।
Karanut is experiencing sleep deprivation and dissociation, and it's not something you'd want to copy. At the same time, however, the fact that these sadhus can control their perception of pain is enormously consequential and may hold leads for us and our own pain management. They want to control pain too,